Total War Three Kingdoms is, well, it's a Total War game, mate. It's a turn-based real-time tactics strategy game, creative assembly. This is a 12th one, I think. Mike, resident Total War expert, you right?
I don't mean to pull a Liam on you. It's actually the 13th.
No, is it?
It's the 12th mainline
Is it?
installment.
Is it? No.
It is indeed, yeah.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
it's the 13th, including, I think it might be Thrones of Britannia that is like the outlier.
Of course, that's part of their saga series.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, if you want to get it right on one video, if anyone's going to be a stickler for the facts, it's going to be Total War fans, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, exactly.
So
I'm trying to get some points before I do my terrible
review. If I mess
review.
up, like, what period this is set in, that's a dislike bar
China.
gone. Yeah, absolutely. It is set in China.
It is.
In the Three Kingdoms period, which is like year of our Lord, I don't know, but year of the Chinese dynasty, like between 2020 and 2080. So
I think it's 190 AD or something like that, if I can remember rightly from the intro cinematic of the game. Yeah. But it's a very famous period, especially in like video game terms. If you're in any way literate in video games, you've probably heard of a few of these characters, thanks to like Dynasty Warriors and stuff. And
I actually didn't, so this
really?
is me coming out as
so like Cao Cao and Liu Bei and Guan Yu and all these.
Cao, no, didn't know any of them.
Right,
genuinely,
send it there.
Genuinely didn't. It's alright, listen, it's a learning point for me, so I'm happy to move on.
It's about personal betterment, this
it
video.
You
thought it was a review? Well, no.
It's an intervention.
So it's set in this dead famous period of Chinese history that Jake hasn't heard of. And it's sort of cool having played as these characters in Dynasty Warriors. I started playing Dynasty Warriors from Dynasty Warriors 3 on the PS2. It's a game where you sort of just chop endless hordes.
It's a mass murder fantasy.
It is, yeah. So you play as a hero, but that's how these people were like portrayed in the romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Yeah, so like basically the accounts of these real life people has been very much like turned into some sort of Robin Hood kind of this legendary way.
Yeah, exactly.
Where, he was a man and he could kill 6 people with his little finger.
Yeah.
It was kind of like these huge over the top stories about him, which is what this romance comes from, right? It was written almost like how a poet writes, I guess. It wasn't very factual, I guess. They took some liberties with how strong these people were.
Yeah, inflating numbers and inflating the feats that they had actually performed and stuff. And, it's like King Arthur and stuff. And we've, in Wales, you like the Mabinogi or whatever. But it's sort of that type of thing anyway. So that they reflected that really nicely in the game by having 2 different settings for you to choose from. So you can have the romance setting, which does have heroes. The game plays a little bit closer to like the Total War Warhammer games, where you've got heroic characters who have got special abilities and who can do individual acts of amazingness, and they've got like story arcs and stuff and relationships and stuff like this. Or you can play in the more like historical
records,
that's what they call it, right? So which is the more historical mode,
more authentic to like a normal Total War experience, I suppose. And you're not going to see any like 1v1 big duels between.
So the heroes have got like, they're just generals in that sense, I guess, and they've got like retinues of like, they'll have some cavalry with them and stuff. So they're not just one person; they're like a general unit, which is what they are like historically in the Total War games. So there's 2 big ways of going out of the game. So I went down the romance route because
I think that's like kind of like, not only is it like the default setting, but it's kind of like not the gimmick, but it's the standout feature of this game is that it's doing this, which the other ones right. Before. Yeah,
so I went down that route, and there's a lot of cool stuff in there. You mentioned the heroes dueling and stuff, and that's probably, the heroes are definitely the focus of like development, because the way you manage your armies, each hero has their own retinue of 6 units. So it's not just like recruit one general and then get like 19 other units to accompany him. You instead have 3 heroes in your big armies, and then each 3 of them have 6 units of their own.
Under their control.
You can control them freely and stuff on the battlefield, but that's just how it's sort of managed. There's a whole dueling system in there which can be really decisive, and they even throw some curveballs in there where if you think, I'm going to take this guy out early because he's a big powerful guy, so I'm going to duel him straight away with my big dueling lad. He'll die, and then maybe the other 2 generals will go mad with grief, and they'll get a massive stat boost because their mate's dead.
It's different than normal because like you imagine it would just kill the morale of the troops, and then they will be at like a disadvantage.
So there is a morale hit, but it has this
sort of like
counteracting thing of like where the generals are going mad with literally it says mad with grief.
So it's kind of like it in like Total War Warhammer, like when the lizard men could like go get enraged.
Sure, yeah.
So it's kind of something like that.
So the mechanic, so you can see like a lot of comparisons with the Warhammer games when you play in the romance mode. And overall, if I'm going to try and summarize this in a short video, overall it is a very complete and polished game. It runs really, really well. The art style is really nice. It took me a little while to get it into shape, like because I do find that quite often with Total War games. Like the first time I look at them, I always sort of think, ugh. but then I have to
get
change
into some menus and tweak some things.
Exactly, and because they've got like some weird graphic options like sharpness and stuff that
on by default, I guess.
Yeah, so I took me a while to get it looking okay for my eyes anyway. But it looks really nice. The art style's amazing. The skill tree is the best skill tree I've ever seen because it's literally a tree, but it just looks phenomenal. Like that'll be on your screen right now, so you can see it obviously. But it's just the best skill tree, man. It's a beautiful thing.
How does it play outside of the battles? Like, is there much of a difference there with the heroes? That's one thing because I played like a tiny bit of it, but most of my time in game was in battles because it was towards the beginning of the game where all of the overworld map stuff is very tutorial-y.
Yeah.
So like the only stuff I did like hands off was the battles.
So to begin with, like the advisor was just infuriating. Like I've never been so annoyed about the advisor before. It's just I don't know what it was, but it was so persistent and so like every turn it was just constantly saying, "Remember, you can do this, 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 and this," and I was like.
Maybe it's to try and like turn you into a real warlord. So you're like,
be
gone, let me rule my kingdom.
Yeah, so I can behead the advisor
exactly.
in fury.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a huge act of immersion. Once I got over that, and I sort of I played through one campaign really as Liu Bei. Diplomacy is really good, much better than it has been before. Lots more diplomacy options. At least it felt like anyway. And you could do a lot more interesting things with like alliances and vassals. You could ask to become a vassal, which I've not seen that before. People come up to you and say, "Will you endorse me as the emperor?" And you can, and there's loads of like
so
diplomatic.
You can become the sidekick.
Yeah, but maybe down the line you want to become the emperor, but you could use that to your advantage and try and inflate
set up the big betrayal. Oh,
exactly. Yeah. There's loads of really interesting things you can do in it this time, which is great. And I feel like it probably hasn't had enough praise for that. I think it's having read the reviews and stuff, I think it's excellent. The diplomacy options, and I really enjoy that part of this game. But this. Just something about it overall that I really can't put my finger on it, but it's just something that feels quite unspectacular about it. Like it feels really good. It feels solid. It's a really good game. But there's just something about it that doesn't quite feel special. And I really can't place what it is. I think potentially it's like the scope is so massive and they've tried doing all these different things and you can play it in a couple of different ways. And so it doesn't really try and do one thing amazingly well. If you look at like Shogun 2 Total War, that's a lot of people's favourite edition, and that's such a lean Total War experience in comparison because it's just dead simple, and you choose a clan, become the emperor, and it's got the setting like nailed down and stuff, and it just did a few things really, really well, whereas this tries to do quite a lot. I think I really don't know what it is. It's a tough one to try and break down. I think maybe it might be the fact that Total War Warhammer was such a high point and such a special game that this in comparison doesn't quite follow in terms of innovation and bringing new ideas in and trying to shake it up. This doesn't feel like a huge shake up or anything. It feels like another Total War game.
How much interest did you have quickly before we leave it at, I don't know, this period in time? Because I think for a lot of people, their interest in the period does kind of sway them. And obviously, like the last two we had, were kind of close to your heart. One being, I had to focus on Welshmen, which is a very, very underrepresented race. And of course, our own. And then, second of all, the second closest thing to your heart, you could be a fucking vampire, couldn't you?
Well, exactly. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So if games are ultimately about like entertainment and like emotional connection, even if it is a grand strategy game about, controlling China, and that perhaps the setting, I don't know, but I just think that I tell you what it might be. It took me a really long time to settle into it this time. Right. I think it was because of the UI and the way that it's so style of a substance and style of a function rather than substance, actually, because it's so difficult to figure out what you're looking at. Like there's just a lot of difficult decisions where like really, really simple things, like if so if you're looking at your town building options and stuff, you float over like one of the buildings and a little thing will pop up on top of it telling you what the upgrade options are. The way that has been laid out this time is very difficult to process and figure out what you're looking at and which building is part of which town on the map. I said the diplomacy was really good, and it is, but the diplomatic screen has some like basic information that I just don't know what I'm looking at a lot of the time. Like who is at war with who is allied with who. Difficult to
so not just aesthetic issues then. Like
no, it looks really nice.
Information can be like completely missed.
And that's the problem. The UI is massive, and there's a lot of UI going on the screen, especially on the grand campaign level. And then for that reason, I think it just took me so long to, like, much longer than usual, to settle into the game and figure out what I was doing. And I spent like the first 50 turns like thinking, where is this? Why can't I click on this? Where's the, I need this thing. Where is it? And maybe because I didn't have that like warmth and that feeling of like getting into it for so long, perhaps that's why I think it's just. I can easily recommend it as a Total War game, but it's if you're into Total War games, but I don't think this is going to be a Total War game that converts you. Total War Warhammer would definitely have been a game to bring people into the series. I don't think this is. Unless you live in China and you've never played Total War before.
Yeah, or you're really interested in China anyway. Well, Mike, that's our Total War expert correspondent, Mike Williams, talking about Total War. You heard it here first, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Be sure to check out some more of our stuff that's coming out soon. Or just check out some of our back catalogue. We got loads. We talk about loads of games, huh?
Did you say check out our stunts? Are we doing stunts?
Yeah. Check out Liam's Vine compilation.
Liam's aerial acrobatic compilation.
Check out Liam's Insta, okay?
Liam's flips.
We'll